Hi and welcome to BAN. I am so glad that given what you're going through that you've taken that important step of coming and reaching out for support. BAN is the club that we all wish that you didn't qualify to be here. But since it has happened to you, and since nobody can turn back the hands of time, since you didn't have a choice in what's happened to you, I'm just glad you're here and getting the support. Today we're going to be covering BAN Session 1. I'm titling this, Your Healing Story Begins. What does the story look like from the time you find out to, and I hope none of you stop until you get to that place where you are totally and 100% healed, because you can get there. I encourage every one of you to sort of grab on tenaciously and make up your mind that I am not going to stay down. This might be one of the biggest, most devastating things I've ever been through in my life, but I'm not going to stay down. Somehow, some way, I'm going to reach out, get the help I need, I'm going to find the answers, and I am going to get through this. I'm not going to let what my spouse did to me destroy me for the rest of my life. When I first found out about my husband's affair, one of the first things that I did is I went to a local bookstore looking for a book to help me survive. I remember having a hooded sweatshirt on and dark sunglasses because I was so afraid that somebody in my town might recognize me looking for a book on infidelity. That was in the year 2000, now 15 years ago. I couldn't find any books on surviving affairs. And there's no way in a million years I would have ever asked the clerk for help. And so I found 2 books that dealt with crisis in marriage. I bought both books. I found help in both books, and I'm thankful for that. But I'm telling you, there's times at home where I wanted to take the book and I just want to throw it at the wall, and I wanted to say, don't give me this how-to theory crap from some psychologist that learned about it in university. Give me the true life story of somebody who's been through this. Does anybody understand how I feel? And that's why I do what I do today. When my husband and I were going through this journey, we sought professional help. And there were some things that were helpful, and we will always be grateful. Frankly, a lot of the help that we received back then was damaging. Among other things, one of the things that happened is I found that even counselors were afraid to say the word affair. And that made me feel worse, because has something so shameful and so bad happened that I mean, you can talk about other things, you can talk about alcoholism, you can talk about child abuse, but it's like there's such a code of secrecy around affairs that it was the one thing that couldn't be spoken. I remember saying to my counselor, say the word affair. Quit calling it a crisis. Call it what it is, and hit it, you know, square on. Say what it is. So in going through this, and I want you to know what's coming, because we're only at the beginning. I wish that I could give you everything I have in my head right now, just in one moment, because if I could, then you would be healed. But I can't, and you have to go through your own process and your own journey. And as we're going to learn today, slow is fast when it comes to healing from affairs. So we're going to put this together one step at a time, but we're going to do it right. So I want to tell you what other topics you can look forward to. In the next session, we're going to look at why do affairs happen in the first place. And we're going to find out that the reasons the world out there tells us are not the reasons. Okay? We're going to look at how do I change my spouse? How do I deal with that? I get asked that question all the time in different words. Of course, you can't really change your spouse. You change you. But how do I do that? And how do we know what to change? Then in the 4th session, we're going to look at, should I stay or should I go? What do I do about my marriage? What's the right thing to go? Number 5, we're going to talk about how to overcome the extreme and intense deep anger that we feel. And some of you actually need to learn how to get to anger, because anger is a positive emotion that's given to you for healing. Anger is not wrong. It's what you do in your anger that often becomes the wrong thing. Then we're going to look at overcoming obsessive thoughts, triggers, anniversaries. We're going to look at how do you trust again. Some of you may be rebuilding your marriages, some not. But at the end of the day, sometimes it's not about building trust in the marriage, because what I find is as betrayed spouses, because this has happened to us, we don't trust ourselves anymore. We don't trust ourselves to make good decisions. We're going to look at trust. We're going to look at how do you rebuild a marriage, because a lot of people coming at BAN want to rebuild their marriages. So what does that look like? That's going to be session number 8. We're going to look at boundaries and codependency. We're going to look at rebuilding self-esteem. How many of you, yes, self-esteem kind of shattered because this has happened, exactly. Then we're going to talk about acceptance, which is moving from that feeling of sadness to joy. Number 12 is going to be forgiveness. How do you forgive? Number 13 is going to be about navigating divorce, because many of you will not heal your marriages. And for many of you, healing your marriage might not be a very wise choice, depending on what your spouse is doing. It's a very individual decision. And then last, session 14, we're going to look at life, your future, on the other side. I'm calling that session, Excuse Me, Your Life is Waiting for You. So I'm going to talk about a timeline, but I feel very cautious in giving you a timeline because it varies for every person. Varies is that first blank on your handout right there. And it depends on a combination of factors. Some people heal in as little as a year. That's the shortest that I've seen anybody heal. And then there's other people that I've run into that have spent 30 years and they are not healed at all. The bitterness and the anger and the hurt is still there. So time alone doesn't heal. It's time plus doing the right things. So 2 years is another one of your blanks. So what does it take? Well, you have to be able to get good help. If you don't have the right help, you're not going to probably heal. So that's your next blank, good help. And you have to be willing to do the work. Some people think that healing is just going to happen to you, but it's not going to happen to you. It's something that you're going to have to tenaciously work on to get past it. It'll probably be one of the hardest things you will ever do. But like one of my band members said to me many years ago, and I just thought this was so classic when she said it, she said, I am so sick and tired of people telling me how long it should take to heal, as if it's going to take me, 1 year, 10 months, 6 days, 10 hours, and 5.6 seconds. And so that's my disclaimer. I just want you to know that as I lay out a timeline, because everybody says, well, what does healing look like? I feel kind of nervous to do that because it could take a year, it could take 10 years. At the end of the day, what's more important is not how long it takes, but that you are moving forward through the journey the whole time. And it's important not to compare your journey to other people's journeys because it depends on a lot of factors. It's a lot easier for somebody to heal who maybe has really good support people in their life compared to somebody with a lot of dysfunction. It's a lot easier to heal if your spouse is really remorseful compared to if your spouse is being mean and cruel to you. There's just so many variables in this journey of what it takes. I call phase 1 of healing, which could take anywhere from 3 to 6 months, the trauma phase. And during that time, most betrayed spouses struggle with certain levels of post-traumatic stress disorder. So that's your next blank, post-traumatic stress disorder. What does that look like? One of the events that happened to me very early on, this was maybe a few weeks into my healing journey, my youngest daughter was in competitive volleyball. She was 12 years old at the time, and it was the year-end party, and she was expected to show up at this big year-end party, as was I. All the parents were going to be there, parents of other teams, and so I had to go there, and I was expected to stay. And I'll tell you that this healing journey is a roller coaster. You'll have better days and you'll have worse days. It's kind of up and down like this, and I was on a down day. I was in a dark, dark space that day, and I'm driving to this meeting, and I'm coaching myself in my head because my daughter is in the car, and I don't want her to be upset, and I'm going like, don't cry. Don't cry. You just have to get in the door, say hello to those people, and then you're going to leave. Like, there's no way I was staying, but I couldn't get away without greeting them. Don't cry, I'm telling myself, don't cry. So I get into that meeting, and I do the thing, and I succeed. I drop her off, I say hello, and I get out of there. 15 minutes later, I find myself standing on a street. It's like I come to, and I do not recognize this street. I've never been here before. I don't know what day it is. I don't know why I'm standing on this street. I don't know where I'm supposed to be. I don't know what I'm doing. And I just stand there, completely lost. In fact, it felt like I was dreaming, but I wasn't dreaming, like it was one of those weird moments. And then I came to and I remembered, that's right. I'm supposed to be in my car. Now, you can forget a lot of items. You can forget your purse, you can forget your keys, and all kinds of things, but when you start forgetting things as big as your car, you're in rough shape. That's post-traumatic stress disorder. What happens, and it's very normal, is that your mind is so hijacked by the stress that you are under that it's very difficult to do regular life. The reason why I think it's so important for you all to know that is when it happens to you, you feel like you're going crazy. You feel like you're losing your mind. You feel like you'll never get through this. And I just need you to know that you are going to get through this. And it is going to be okay one day. And I'm going to show you that journey and how to get through. So don't think you're going crazy. You're going to oscillate between, in the beginning, normally 3 extremes, okay? And these are the next 3 bullet points. One of them is extreme anger. And that's where a lot of betrayed spouses can do all kinds of crazy things, okay? And so that is normal to feel that. And again, like my article, my theory is you need to learn how to get mad, but stay out of jail. So, because when you go to jail, that's not very helpful. And I have had clients I've worked with go to jail over stuff, okay? Because you're just not with it. We're all tempted to do, your mind goes to places that you never dreamed you didn't even know you had those places in your mind before this happened to you. And if you have to, an activity to deal with anger that I can quickly tell you that I recommend is you can only do this when you're alone at home. Please remember to close your windows if it's summertime, and you take a pillow, and what you do is you sort of beat the crap out of your bed like this, and you yell. And it's a good idea to swear. I think swear words were meant for surviving affairs, and you say what you would like to say to your husband. You say what you would like to say to that other woman, other man. You say what you would like to say to whoever has made you angry until you get it out of your system and you collapse crying. That's a very powerful release. Here's the key. No one gets hurt, you don't get hurt, and you don't damage any property. Okay, that's expressing anger healthy. There's all kinds of ways. Deep depression. It's not unusual to be cuddled up in the fetal position on the bathroom floor, feeling like you cannot face another day. And this is not exclusive to women. I have had the biggest, toughest, strongest, most silent, I don't share my feelings, tough guys whose wives have had affairs who have told me that this was their experience. And this is what they say: I did not know I had emotions like that. So it's not a gender-specific thing. And then you might go into what I've noticed very common. This is the 3rd one. And I call it the heroic save the marriage at all costs mode. And this is where you're signing up for seminars, you've got yourself in counseling, you're buying books off the internet, you're buying programs off the internet, you're reading every article that you can get your hand on, and you're just doing. And that's probably the best of the 3 places to be in. But I just want you to notice that it is motivated by the same obsessive pain. So here's my 4 action steps, for this first phase. Number 1, don't make any major life-altering decisions while you're in the first 3 months. Just hang on. When you have extreme emotions, your judgment is impaired. Anger can impair your judgment as much as alcohol does. So don't make any life, because you're going to be making some of the biggest decisions that have the biggest bearing on where you're going in the future, and you don't want to make, you want to make the right ones. You know, and they're decisions that affect you. If you have children, they affect your children, and they affect your extended family. You're not going to be in a rush to go and date and marry somebody else, so just take your time. No life-altering decisions in the first 3 months. 2, live one day at a time. If you try to, this is what we say to ourselves: how am I ever going to get through this? How am I going to get through the next month? That's too big a chunk. In the beginning, I find it's all you can do to think, okay, I'm having coffee with my friend at 11, it's 9. I just have to get to 11 o'clock. That's all I'm thinking about right now. Just one chunk at a time is manageable. Number 3, take care of yourself so you can take care of others. A lot of people that are betrayed spouses are not very good at taking care of themselves, because you guys are givers and you're always doing for everybody else. And so I encourage you, if ever there was a time to be selfish, now is it. And what I mean is, take some quiet time for yourself. Maybe take some time off work if you need it. Maybe you need to go to work as a distraction. Take care of your health. Just take what you need for you at this particular time. And get support. It's a good idea to have a good counselor or therapist or coach. I recommend that everybody have 3 to 5 support people. And your support people might be quite surprising. They can be friends, but my criteria is, if you feel better after talking to that person, that's a good support person. If you don't feel better, that's not a good support person. And if you're one of those people where everybody knows, what happens is you get too many voices and too many meddling opinions and too many uneducated people, and I mean uneducated about affairs people, telling you what to do, and that's confusing. If you're in that situation, pick your 3 to 5, and this is what you tell everybody else. I'm so thankful you're concerned for me. I need you to know that I am getting good help. The best thing you can do for me right now is pray. And I will call you if I need your help. Other than that, I just really need you to respect my privacy right now. And start cutting off the information flow of all this talking that could be going around, because that talking becomes harmful. All right? Next blank is slow is fast when it comes to healing from affairs. So I've already shared about that. The fighting phase, this is phase 2, or we could call it the facing core issues phase. I call it the fighting phase because for my husband and I, it was the fighting phase. Sadly, we didn't have programs like the programs that we now put together, and so it was a lot harder for us than it needed to be. My husband always says today that he's jealous of our clients because it's so much easier for them. So the fighting did not have to be as volatile as we did it. We are 2 very passionate people, and we have 2 very strong personalities. So that's how we, do things. Other people are more validating in the way that they do things, so they kind of say nice and affirming things to each other. And some relationships are more what we call conflict avoiding, so they can get along quite well and do life together because they do that, but they're not talking about the core issues. So there's not really a right or a wrong or a better or worse. Research has shown that, all those kind of marriages can succeed. So, but what we did right in that fighting phase is we faced the issues head on. But I want you to notice that we didn't do it initially, because initially you're so traumatized, you'll try your very best, but it's very hard for you as a betrayed person to engage sensibly while you're in that state of trauma. So if you distance yourself about 3 months from the initial emotions, you'll be in a better state to really engage the healing work that you need to do, whether it's healing the marriage or whether it's alone. And that would be a better place to entertain the question of, should I go or should I give my marriage a chance? The main thing is that you want to get to a place in the future where you are not tormented with questions of what if? What if I tried a little bit harder? You know, because you made this decision so quickly. You want to live without regrets. I will never tell any of you what to do in your situation. One of the most important things is that you make your own decisions. But divorce is not an easy route either. And I would say to you that if you feel divorce is the right route for you, you want to know that you know that you know that that's the right route for you. You don't want to be divorced and then regretting it later, thinking, what if I tried? You just need to know that it's right for you. So the next blank there is now it's time to face the core issues. And if you are given a chance, it's wise to work towards saving your marriage so that in the future, when you decide to leave your marriage, you can have that peace of mind. And the next blank is knowing that you did all you could and that there's no room for future regrets. Next phase, phase 3, I call it the hope phase. So you could be about 6 months out. Maybe you don't get to this place till a year out. Maybe it's way farther than that because you just haven't had help until just now. And so one of the things that will happen in the hope phase a little farther out is that we as the betrayed, there's no time like now to take a look at ourselves. Nobody's perfect. And so especially if you're staying in the marriage and healing the marriage, you would want to look at, as part of your healing journey, ways that you may have failed your spouse in the marriage. But here's the real key, and this is the next blank. It's very important to separate the marital issues from the affair issues. That's the next blank. Marital issues from affair issues. And the next blank goes, there's no perfect people, so perfect is your blank. And there's no perfect marriages, so perfect is your next blank. So when somebody says to you, like a counselor, you'll often hear them say, well, let's not talk about the affair, let's talk about what was wrong in your marriage that caused the affair. You're always going to find something wrong because there's something wrong in every marriage. And then what happens is it wrongfully gets blamed as the reason for the affair. But it's not a cause and effect thing, because I want you to know for every marriage like represented that will be listening anywhere to this talk, there's been an affair and you can find problems in the marriage. I can show you 2 marriages out there with worse problems that don't have affairs in them. So it's not a cause and effect thing. And your spouse will initially blame you for their choice to have an affair. The reason why they do this is otherwise they would have to take responsibility in themselves. So always separate the marital issues from the affair issues. It's 2 unrelated things. But there's no time like the present if you're staying in the marriage to be willing to look at yourself. Just look at it in different context. It's not because... it's like my husband told me when we decided to go public with our story, because up until then there was only about a dozen people that knew. And it was January of 2004, the Reader's Digest in Canada ran our story using our real names, Brian Birch of Abbotsford, BC, blah, blah, blah. Well, I guess we better tell everybody so like Aunt Mary doesn't read about my husband's affair while she's in the waiting room of the doctor's office. So we began to share our story, and after we shared a couple of times, Brian said to me, I don't appreciate the way that you're sharing our story. Now at this point, he had done everything that I could think of to heal our marriage, to become a better man, to face his stuff, and if it wasn't for his equal passion to mine to sharing, we wouldn't be able to do this work that we do. I wouldn't be standing here talking to you right now, so I didn't want to dishonor him. Quite the contrary. So I said, what do you mean? What am I sharing that you don't like? And he said, well, you're making it sound like all your heroic efforts is what made me come back to the marriage. But he said, you know, I saw you doing all that stuff. I saw you trying to change. I saw you trying to win me back. And he said, frankly, I didn't think that stuff was going to last. I didn't think you could hold out. He said, I made a decision to come back to our marriage because I loved you. I made a decision to recommit to our marriage because it was the right thing to do. I made a decision to come back because it was consistent with my values and my beliefs. And he said, I did it because it was right for me. I don't think you deserve the credit for my decision to do the right thing. And that was such a big aha moment for me, and it's so important for all of you, because what I learned that day is I could be divorced today. See, it's not anything I did or my smartness that resulted. Only the reason why I'm in my marriage still today is because I did give it a chance. The second reason is the bigger reason, and that's because my husband chose to do the right thing. And if he hadn't made that choice, which I had no control over, I'd be divorced today. Okay? So some of you are going to end up divorced, and you're going to say, what's wrong with me? What did I do wrong? And the answer is nothing. You did nothing wrong. Your spouse made a different choice. We don't have control over our spouse's choices. But I can show you, if you want to, how to maximize the chance that they'll make the right decision. Phase 4. And this could be about a year later, 2 years, a little farther. I call it better, but it still hurts. One of the important parts of this phase is that I usually find this is when, as betrayed spouses, because most people react exactly opposite as what they're sure they're going to react before it happens to them. Before it happens to us, we're like, that is a deal breaker. If it ever happens to me, I'm out of there. I will not stay. And then it happens to us, and most of us find ourselves reacting exactly opposite to how we were 100% sure we would react before it happened to us. And that is that we want to try and make it work. And in fact, we do so obsessively. We become needy. And we're clinging to this marriage with all our hearts, okay? And it finally hits us. I can't make this happen. This might not work. Maybe I don't want it to work. Maybe my spouse will never do the right thing, and I'm not prepared to be unhappy for the rest of my life. Maybe I'm going to end up facing divorce. So your 2 blanks, the first one is letting go of the marriage, and you may need to face divorce. But here's the beautiful thing in that phase when you finally get there. There's a principle in life that whatever you hold on to with all your heart tends to elude you. And whatever you finally surrender, if it's meant to be yours, that's when you win it back. And in my own life, when I reached that place, it's there when you get your marriage back. Here's a phone call that happens often in our office at Passionate Life Seminars. It's from the unfaithful spouse. It goes like this. Anne, Brian, you have to help me. You have to help me. My wife or my husband was the most wonderful person in the world. I love them with all my heart. There could never be anyone else in my life except this person. I need my wife back. They found out about my affair 2 years ago. And frankly, I hadn't even ended my affair. They signed us up for counseling, and I went, but I was just giving lip service to it. I was really lying through that whole counseling thing. And now my spouse has filed for divorce. Now they're leaving me. You just have to save me. You have to help me get them back. And you know what? When we get that phone call, very rarely can we help that marriage. Because very rarely will the betrayed spouse get on the phone with us anymore. Because they've reached their line and they're done. And they're really done. And so my encouragement to you is sometimes if you want your marriage, it's not going to happen until you really draw that line, until you're ready to let go of it. It might take filing divorce papers for the other person to get a wake-up call. So, you know, that usually feels super uncomfortable to us. But in case things aren't going the way you want it to go, that's why I have a saying, would you please reach that line before you're really at that line, so that you would still get on the phone with us? And if your spouse really hits that place of remorse, if they're not there yet, that we could help you. Does that make sense? Okay. Phase 5, almost but not quite. And this is where we finally learn to trust again. This is where we learn to forgive. And let me just give you a quick thing about forgiveness. On the surface, experts disagree about whether you should forgive or not forgive. But when I look a little deeper, I find they don't agree on their definitions of forgiveness. There's 2 levels of forgiveness. The first level is a level that's very personal, and it has nothing to do with reconciling the relationship. And it's the part where you make a choice to release your feelings of anger, hatred, bitterness, revenge, that part of you that's eating you up alive. You would make that decision even if you were a victim of a different crime, like a rape, but you would never want to have a relationship with the rapist. On that level, experts agree that it's wise to always work towards that level of forgiveness. Reconciliation forgiveness is not wise unless the other person is treating you kindly. It's not wise to be with a person who is abusing you. But you can still have peace whether you in the end choose to stay or whether you choose to go. But you don't want to go there fast. Quick forgiveness is cheap forgiveness, and it dishonors the healing process. And finally, in the end, you get to a place where you're healed. Remember, only if you've got good help and if you've done the work. When you get to a place of healed, what that looks like is you'll never forget an event this big. You know, that's like saying you'll forget a child that you had that maybe passed away. You're not going to forget. But when you remember, it no longer has the power to steal your joy. And the reason why, and this is your last blank, is because you've rewritten your story. People ask me, Anne, how can you do this work? How can you stay in this affair world? How can you keep talking to people about affairs? Doesn't it make you sad when you go back there? And I go, no. Because you see, I can see you healed when you can't see it yourself. My story is not a story of a black spot on my marriage. It's not a story of, oh, woe is me, this terrible thing happened, we're not as good as other people. Our story, I've rewritten my story to a story of victory. It's like, ha! A great evil came in and tried to destroy my life, but poof, I win. I conquered that thing, yay! You know, we beat that. It's a story of conquering and victory. It's a story of I'm not staying down. It's a story of suffering, but of overcoming that suffering and finding meaning by helping others. And I'm not unique. I just encourage you all to get to that place where that memory doesn't hurt anymore. In finality, I'll say it was like this. When the affair happened, I was like a caterpillar that went into a dark cocoon. And I was enveloped in a cloud of sadness, and I thought that I would never come out. And that lasted for me 2.5 years. And then when I did come out, it was like this butterfly just emerged. And I can tell you, ever since then, I have become unstoppable. And I don't please people anymore. I am free to be fully who I am. And that's what all of you have the potential to, and that's what the title of my book is about. My husband's affair became, key word, was the most devastating experience of my life, but it became the best thing that ever happened to me. Not our marriage, to me. Because I'm no longer that person whose identity is wrapped up in my marriage, who's lost herself, and who is afraid to just step out and be me, trying to imitate other people. And that's there for you too. Thank you.